Good morning, good evening, good all the things. Hi, what's going on? I'm Catie Brannon, Tea Time True Crime with Catie. Thank you so much for joining. And before I do the awesome little title page and show my children, I'm going to talk about the giveaway. So I'm doing a giveaway of crystals, perhaps nails. Now, what would the gentleman like for me to give away? I am trying to get to 1K, 1,000 followers, because apparently on YouTube, it just looks really good. And I love YouTube, and I also love like what I do. And I started, you guys, just because I've always been fascinated by true crime, and I finally had the push last year in April, and then finally my partner was like, you should really do a true crime channel, and I was like, really? So yeah, that's why I'm here, and I want to share cases that are obscure to be the voice for the voiceless. So yeah, to enter the giveaway, you guys, you just have to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And at the end of February, I will announce the winners. It's not going to be one person. I have quite a few crystals to give away, and I'm super, super excited. So yeah, if that is your thing, please hang out. Now, I'm going to be talking about two men exonerated, of a crime they did not commit. It's a brutal one. And it's also about the brutal demise of Nancy Depriest. So come with me, grab a snack, grab some tea, and let's have some good positive energy. I got candle lit behind me, surrounded by crystals. Ooh, let's breathe, and we're going to talk about the case of Nancy Depriest. This crime is very brutal, so there is definitely a trigger warning. I'm going to be talking about horrific crime, coercion of the police, and two pretty much kids wrongfully convicted of a brutal crime that took their lives, changed it forever. I'm going to be talking about a crime that is going to be hard to hear for some people. There is definitely a trigger warning in my podcast. Just want to let you know this crime is finally solved, but two innocent men had to go down and lose 12 years of their life. And yes, before I get to my story, if you are watching this video, I took a nap, I slept in curls, and my hair looks like some kind of an animal's nest, and I am cool with that. So if you hear sizzling in the background, that is the, I think I have it too high, you guys. I have a tea warmer right on my desk with the tea getting ready to be sipped. Okay, here we go. Yeah, families were devastated. So I'm going to set you at the scene. We're going to be talking about Pizza Hut. You guys remember Pizza Hut? It's still around today. But back in the 1980s, it was, according to my parents, at its prime. I remember as a kid that we would eat at Pizza Hut. But then it wasn't good anymore a few years later, so my parents haven't been there since, or, us as a family. But in the 1980s, Pizza Hut was all the rage. In fact, as I was researching Austin, Texas, there's a lot of Pizza Huts. So this is going to be taking place at a Pizza Hut. And first, how it starts is a regional manager actually came to check on the store. Now, he noticed one of the stores, the door was unlocked. So he opened the door and he was absolutely horrified about what he saw. It's brutal, guys. It's brutal. Now, what he sees makes him run across the street to the nearest convenience store to call 911. Now, When police arrived and they walked in, they immediately noticed that the floor of the Pizza Hut was completely flooded, water everywhere. And a blonde woman was lying face up. She was nude, her head to the side. She was bleeding. There was blood all around her, which mixed in the water. Haunting sight. And her mouth was open, and clearly she has been shot in the head. When you saw this poor woman, there was clear signs of sexual trauma. She suffered a great deal. I mean, it was brutal. When the police officers arrived, she was actually still alive, but she was fading fast. Nancy Lena Lovelady Depriest. She was born March 4th, 1968. March 4th, that is a Pisces. She was a Texan native. She was from Fort Worth, Texas. She was just brutally taken away. And she was just a newly mother. She had a 15-month-old child, to her daughter, Sylvia. And tragically, she was taken away, Nancy, from this world, October 24th, 1988, which means she was only 20 years old. She wasn't even supposed to work that morning, but she really wanted to play softball, so she volunteered to work. She was married to Todd Depriest, and they were high school sweethearts, which I think is really cute and beautiful, especially back then. And he said that she was a wonderful wife. This death, you guys, it shocked Austin, Texas. Like it was so brutal that they really wanted to catch the killer. Now, Nancy was started off as a waitress at Pizza Hut, and she made it to become an assistant manager. And she was really, really excited about her new responsibility. She was supposed to go into the store, turn the dough machine on, get ready, to open. Now, as that was happening, someone who she knew or she didn't know, because when the police were on the scene, they noticed there was no forced entry. So right after the attack on Nancy, there were 2 Pizza Hut employees that showed up to the restaurant. As I'd done my research, these 2 Pizza Hut employees did not work at that specific Pizza Hut, but they did work at a different Pizza Hut. The name was Richard Danziger, 18 years old, and Christopher Ochoa, which was 22 years old. They were actually in the restaurant and they were drinking and toasting about Nancy. Now, drinking as in Pizza Hut soda, from the soda fountain. Now, Richard was asking questions about Nancy, like, how was she positioned, any suspects yet, and he wanted details of this horrific crime. Now, he was talking to the security guard, and he just felt like Richard knew about the crime scene more than anyone else. So he became a suspect. Now, the main thing that apparently nailed Richard, which is so ridiculous, even today's standard, you guys wouldn't believe. Okay, number 1. The first one was that he said that she was shot in the head, which is true. The second one was the restaurant was flooded with a blue apron. Now, my thinking is if he heard it was plugged in, like plugged by something, the drain, it would be blue because they're Pizza Hut employees and everyone has a blue apron. But when officers heard about this, they became highly suspicious of Richard. Richard was just chilling with Christopher Ochoa. They were actually roommates, I would say friends. And afterwards, Christopher Ochoa was picked up as well. and he was brought into questioning. Yes, just because these guys were asking about Nancy, it just was very suspicious. Richard, after that, was actually taken from his girlfriend's house, Donna Angsted's house. When police went to go search in her home, they noticed, first of all, they went into her home and they asked could they search, and she did comply. Now, what they found was an empty .22 caliber cartridge underneath the bed, and they also find Nancy Depriest's name tag in an ashtray. Yeah, it's looking pretty kind of suspicious, right? Well, Detective Hector Polanco, this guy, when we think of bad cop, you got to think of really bad cop with this Hector guy. This Hector guy, as I read, he was known to always close his cases, okay? And he would not do it by the book. He would not do the right thing. So he wanted to question Christopher Ochoa about, he was like, I want to question you about some robberies that's been going on to Pizza Huts recently. So Christopher goes in and immediately Hector goes into him. And remember, Christopher is only 22 years old. To me, he's a kid. So the interrogation goes from like him banging on the fists and, oh yeah, this is not recorded, by the way. This interrogation, not recorded. But Chris, I will say, went through hell. Hell. He would scream at him, what do you know? And Chris is saying, I don't know anything. And then the detective would grab his arm and tap it and say something like, this is where the needle's gonna go when they execute you if you don't cooperate. Tell me what you know. And of course, Chris is like bewildered and confused. He doesn't understand. And he's like, I literally don't know anything. What is happening? Now, the detective is getting pretty irritated with him. And he's just like, you know what? I'm just going to book you right now. And you're young and you'll be fresh meat to the prisoners. And, Chris is like, what do you want? Now, I also found in this research that he was, an interrogation, you guys, 4 hours. Like 4 hours, not 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, for several hours. In fact, they actually took him to a hotel room, which that's kidnapping people. And then when he asked for a lawyer, they did not give him a lawyer. It was just horrible. And Chris really believed in the justice system, and he never got in trouble in his life ever. Maybe detention back in high school, but that's about it. Oh no, I'm sorry. He didn't even get detention in high school. He was a good kid. Yeah, I know. So while he's in the interrogation room, he is hungry. He is thirsty. And they just berate him for hours, several hours. And then, like I said, they take him to a hotel room and said, you can get room service if you want. But by then, he wants to go home. He wants all this to end. Like, I'm saying this police officer, this detective, Hector, he would put in his mind, like when you scream and yell at someone and, the verbal abuse. And of course, as I've done my research, Hector also was known for physically abusing suspects. I know it's not good, not good at all. So with everything going on, Chris is like, I want to end this. So like I said, after hours of this brutal questioning, which is like not even legal at all, it's horrible. And it wasn't just Hector there. I think there was another cop and a woman cop actually. And they just, for some reason, they really thought this kid did it. And I don't know why, because, they really should have found out more evidence because they got him like really quick, like less than a month. So after that is happening, they make him write down a statement. And this statement basically said that he claimed Richard Danziger killed Nancy. The confession went through, and now there needs to be evidence to match this statement. There needs to be. So poor Nancy. A rape kit was performed on Nancy's body. Notice there was rectal tearing, bruised wrists, and a gunshot wound to the head. Now, as Chris is writing his statement and he wants to get out and he's been brutally interrogated, the thing that nails him apparently to the investigators is a polygraph exam, which unfortunately, when he did the polygraph exam, it showed deception. I feel like it's very easy to fail a polygraph because, listen, if you are so nervous, if you are not well, if you are anxiety, like I said, Chris was not treated right. So being in this test, his nerves are like shot through the roof. Okay. So it's no surprise that, he failed the polygraph. Detective Hector saw that he failed the polygraph and was like, you have to plead guilty to murder. The deal is that you have to testify against Richard. Now, if Richard doesn't get convicted, we're withdrawing our plea, what we think you murderer, should get. And we're actually going to put you on trial for capital murder. So pretty much capital murder is death penalty. So pretty much threatening Christopher's life. So horribly, Christopher said in his own words, he had to make the hardest decision he ever had to make. And that was to testify against Richard. Now, the statement was coerced. And it was just, this statement was brutal. It just, I'll get on to that. So the statement, warning. The statement said that they both assaulted her. They assaulted her orally, vaginally, anally, and also in several areas of the Pizza Hut. And afterwards, they moved her to the restroom and shot her in the back of the head. They washed Nancy in the sink and they moved her to get rid of evidence. Then they got their aprons and they clogged the sink to flood the store to destroy evidence. Now, with all this being said, and the other evidence that they had was apparently Richard's pubic hair was found in the restaurant. That's what they matched it. But it may have been a pubic hair, but it did not have root. It did not. So which means you couldn't get it's just like a little bit of the DNA. It's not like 100% match kind of thing. But that little tiny evidence, and that's it. And then them saying about the apron being clogged. With seeing that evidence, the jury only deliberated for under 10 minutes. Sorry about that. Bowie's trying to get inside and he's meowing. Oh, hold on. Both men received life sentences. Case is closed, right? No. 8 years later, inmate Akeem Marino wrote a letter out of his jail cell, a murder confession. The first time he wrote it to George W. Bush. He was the governor of Texas at the time, and he wrote it to the DA. And for some reason, they didn't open the letter or they didn't reply. I don't know. But the second letter Akeem wrote, he actually wrote the murder, exactly what he did, and confessed, and said he had some kind of epiphany, some kind of like religious conversion. And he just could not let two boys go down for a murder that they did not commit. So this is a new detective. We're 8 years later. Detective Manuel Fuertes heard of the letter and went back to the case file himself and read Christopher's statement. As he was reading Christopher's statement, he knew that it wasn't factual at all. Like something was not right. In this statement, they mention multiple sexual positions that were discussed during this rape. They talked about like 8 ejaculations. Yeah, 8 orgasms. It was the statement, you guys, just read some kind of horrible rape-like fantasy that was not factual to the evidence that was found. So Detective Manuel noticed in the police report that they saw that Nancy was not raped anally, rectally. Okay, you get it. Meaning that she was not sodomized. It says that in the police report. Now, but in the statement, Chris said she was. Now, I told you in the beginning that she did have rectal tearing. This is why. When Nancy was actually brought to the hospital, she was kept on life support because her family wanted to see how many other families they could help by donating her organs. When in fact, her organs helped families. There were her 2 kidneys, her cornea, her liver, and a couple other. But yeah, it's really cool that you hear how she helped other families. And Nancy was the kind of boss that I read from coworkers back in the 80s that she was not really a boss. She was like your friend. And she would never ask you to do something that she wouldn't do. You know, Nancy was very well liked among her peers, among her community. She was just a very sweet, kind, gentle person who like loved everybody. So it's really sad how she was taken from this world. But as I go back to the donating organs, now when that was happening, they had to keep her body at a temperature, at a core temperature. So in order to do that, they had to like temp with a rectal thermometer. You see where I'm going with that? That's why she had a little bit of tearing in her rectal area, because they use a rectal thermometer. Yeah, see how this statement is falling apart? The name tag, you guys, in Richard's girlfriend's house was because Donna was friends. Like the fast food world or any kind of food business, if you guys know, you tend to become a family. You guys work long hours. You wake up early, you party together. And that's how it was for like Nancy. Like they were friends. And Nancy was over Donna's and they drank and had a good time. So that is why her name tag was at the girlfriend's house, because Donna threw parties. Now the DNA sperm was so fragmented that it was like inconsistent. Like, yes, Chris had a little bit of the DNA, but it wasn't 100% match. In the 1980s, DNA was like born. You know what I'm saying? I mean, DNA has been around a while, but it was just now beginning to get used. So it's not as popular back then as it is now, because now they got the DNA and now they're going to solve the case. Okay. It's really, really sad that the lie detector, the polygraph test, even though it is admissible in court, it still did not look good for Chris. But as I said before, lie detectors sometimes can easily be, broken. I saw an episode on Crime Scene Confidential. Yeah, this queen right here, Alina Burroughs. This is actually how I first saw the case. Alina Burroughs is a crime scene investigator where she talks about forensics. It's on, I think, Discovery Plus or Max. And I really enjoyed it. And I found this story. I found a few stories, and George just said, you need to do this one. You need to do the podcast on the Pizza Hut one. And I was like, okay, babe, I will do it. So I've been doing it researching for days now. But anyway, so Alina Burroughs actually tricked the lie detector. She was doing a lie detector on the show, you guys, and she was calm, collected, and she told the audience like what she knew about the DNA, and then she told the detective, and he goes, okay, well, you passed the polygraph. And she goes, I was being deceitful. I was holding back about the information that I knew. So that right there showed that people can beat it and people will not beat it. And then it really honestly should be the last resort in any investigation. When you have all your evidence and leads and everything, they think polygraph testing should be the last thing that you do in a case. Meaning, like, before you go to your suspect and arrest them. So Akeem Marino actually says how he killed Nancy. And like I said, Akeem is, this is a tea break, you guys. So the tea I'm going to be drinking actually has my children on it. Bowie, Tux, and Max. Ooh, yes. And I've made cherry blossom, which is my favorite. Ooh, all right. We're going to get into it. Akeem Marino actually said it was just supposed to be a robbery of the Pizza Hut. But then when he saw Nancy, he wanted more. He brings a bag with him with a pistol and handcuffs. He told her that he was there for the carbonation tank for the sodas. Now, if you guys don't know any, I believe, food business, I remember because this happened to me once, and the guy was quite rude. But I was out front, the door is locked, and somebody's banging on the door. And he wanted me to open the door. But I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know you. And then quickly, like my dad came and he goes, what are you doing? Let him in. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know him. Because he was just dressed in plain clothes. He was kind of like an older man. And when we opened the door, I'm like, hi, I'm sorry, I don't know you. And he just like gave me this weird scowl. But it's really sad because like I didn't open the door, but poor Nancy, like she is just so kind and nice. And he was just like, yeah, I'm here for the soda machine. It is weird how the people come to do the carbonation for the soda machines. They don't have uniforms. They don't. They dress in like regular clothes. The only thing you may seem kind of, okay, that's what they do is when they drive up in a truck and you look in their trunk and there's a whole bunch of tanks. So I'm sure Nancy, again, this is the 1980s, but even today, they don't wear uniforms, which I think is very odd. Let me know down below what you think about that. Okay, so she opens the door, and Akeem is basically saying, like I said, I'm here to look at the soda. And she's, okay, and she opens the door, and when she's not looking, he pulls out a gun. He actually takes her and orders her to open the safe, and he takes the bank bag. and he's looking at her, and he starts handcuffing her behind her back, and he takes her into the restroom. He makes her take off her clothes. He sexually assaults her. She turns around, and she's begging for her life, and he shoots her in the back of the head. Now, her panties are, she had like these blue underwear, and it was found in the wastebasket with her brown work pants. So, and she was kind of bound with her bra. It's really, really sad, guys. So after that happened, he could not find his bullet casing. So he decides to actually flood the restaurant, hoping the water would flush the bullet casing in the drain. And then after that, he gets in the car and he drives away. Now back to the actual physical evidence of Nancy. The bruises on Nancy's ankles and legs that I said in the beginning were actually from the pressure pants. Yeah. The marks on her wrists were actually from handcuffs that were behind her back. Investigators now realize that Chris's confession was false. In 2000, with newer but way newer technology than in the 80s, Chris was actually not a match for this vicious crime. It was all over the papers. It was a big deal. It said a Texan was wrongly convicted of murder. Now, Akimo's DNA was 100% matched to the DNA found in Nancy. And also the weapon, the gun, because I couldn't find the gun, Akimo actually said that right after the murder of Nancy, he went to do a robbery. He was caught and he was arrested in El Paso, and the gun was confiscated. So these investigators went to go and get the gun, and they got it, and they matched the bullet, and then, the end. He is the killer. So after 12 years in prison, you guys, 12 years, in 2001, Richard and Chris were exonerated. Sadly, you guys, 2 years into his prison sentence, Richard Danziger, he was only 18 years at the time, and I believe he was 21 when this happened, maybe 22, but he was just in prison for a couple years, and he ended up with a beating that was so bad that left him with permanent brain damage. Yep. Apparently for some BS, mistaken identity in the prison. I know. It's horrible. These two men actually tried to rebuild their life after this horrible ordeal. I believe Chris received a few $1 million, and I believe Richard received money as well. Richard is actually being taken care of by his sister, and he has around-the-clock care with medications, paying bills, just needs help. And Chris, actually, when he got out of prison, Nancy's mother, Jeanette, was there waiting for him. And she just could not, believe these two guys were just in prison for no reason for years. It ruined their lives. It ruined so many families' lives. Like when Chris started, when he was in prison, he didn't realize, but his mother had a stroke. I don't know if I think she's passed away. I don't know if it was from the stroke. But it took a toll on him. And Jeanette actually got Chris a coming home gift, and she got him a watch. And Chris just gave her a big hug and said, "Is there anything I can do to bring justice to your daughter?" And I can't believe. So she's like, "One thing you can do is come and help me speak out in Nancy's name." And he was wondering, yeah, of course. So the thing about Jeanette is, you guys, she is one of those people, even though she lost her daughter in a most brutal, horrific way, is that she does not want the death penalty. I know, I was shook. I was shooketh. She is one of those mothers that does not want the death penalty. She says that, this is where I'm going to use the V word, victim. But she just says if you kill someone because of her, then you are victimizing her all over again. Meaning more blood will be shed and more families will be crushed. That kind of gave me a different kind of perspective. It did, because I do see and I do research a lot of horrible crimes, and I get so angry in my soul that I'm like, we need to do the same, like Hammurabi Code, an eye for an eye. But what, you forget to mention is that, or fail to realize that, these horrible people have loved ones too. They have families as well. So Nancy did not want Akeem to be killed. She actually fought for him to stay alive. She did ask why he murdered her daughter, and a couple things he said. One main thing I'm going to say is that the voices told him to do it, that she was supposed to be a sacrifice. But another investigator thinks that, she was just an opportunity, and he was there and they were alone and he could easily overpower her. So there's that. And Jeanette wanted to know what her daughter's last words were. And he told her what he did. And he said when she turned around, she didn't even see it coming. She actually said, "Please don't hurt me." And then he shot her in the back of the head. Yeah. But yeah, Jeanette does not want him to die. I couldn't believe it. Jeanette has been fighting for rights for killers. I couldn't believe it. I mean, what do you guys think? I talked to George about this, and he's like, I do believe that there could be, rehabilitation. But I also believe that if you're just so bad, like a mass shooter, mass murderer, that you should just die, There's got to be different circumstances. But like I said, Jeanette is very anti-death and very anti-death penalty. She said that's what her daughter would have wanted. She would have not wanted Akeem to die. So yeah, I can already say that, like, Nancy was a saint. She was just nothing but love. I'm sorry. I can't imagine how scared she was. And she's just like a new mom. Her little baby, Sylvia. And her love of her life, Todd. Really sad, you guys. Really, really sad. Like I said, Richard and Chris, they lost years of their life. This case just damaged so many families. Just so many. And you're wondering, well, Catie, what happened with Hector? What happened with the bad cop? Hector, actually, nothing happened. No. He did not get any repercussions. In fact, in 2001, when Hector and Richard were released, you guys, he just retired. Earlier in his career, though, he was known to be really harsh to suspects and assailants. He would use physical violence, and he did get kicked off, but then for some reason, it was forgiven and they let him on again. He didn't lose his job. I don't understand how putting your hands and hurting somebody to make them confess, even though they didn't do anything wrong. But yeah, it's just not good. And you can go on Nancy's Find a Grave and say some nice things if you like. I saw that even recently people are sending her flowers. People are sending her beautiful words. Like, she was only 20 years old, you guys, but she was love. She was literally an angel that even after all this time, over 30 years, people still think about her. She will never be forgotten. And I pray that there is more exonerations. I pray that we need to look more, especially the Innocence Project. You know, I think they're amazing because they're the main reason why Chris is out. Chris lost hope in the justice system. But then when the Innocence Project got involved, got all the paperwork in order, and he was out, it was incredible. But like I said, you know, even over 20 years later, families are still destroyed for this horrible case. Yeah. That was really sad. But true crime is not a happy time at all. But it is very important to educate yourself and remember the people who are not here with us. Especially, I feel like Nancy is one of those people that would really have made a difference. And she was just so sweet and kind. And for her to get taken that way, she must have been so afraid. Thank you so much for listening, you guys. Thank you for watching. Definitely check out that giveaway and subscribe. I really, really appreciate you. Just you guys listening or watching. I don't care if there's 10 of you or one of you, just any of you guys that give me any time of day. It means the absolute world to me. Until next time, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Remember, you're doing better than you think.